Hey folks, Scott M Fischer here, and this month we're going to take you through my latest painting for Magic the Gathering, Giada, the Font of Hope. Yeah, for foundations. Let's get into it. As it turns out, this isn't my first adventure with Giada. Matter of fact, I did this version of her, which is one of the very first versions where I got to actually help design her a little bit. And that's rare, that you get to design somebody and that you also get to do them twice. So here are the 4 thumbnails that I did for this particular illustration. We kind of did a hybrid, and we wound up with this rough right here. This is just my digital comp. And from that, I did a traditional drawing, which you see here, just a nice little graphite drawing. Busted that thing out, probably about 17 inches high or so. And then I upped the contrast of it and printed it out and mounted it onto cradled panel using gel medium, almost like an Oreo sandwich. Sandwich that thing together. All right, let's get into it. With that panel mounted and protected by gel medium, I went ahead and started doing a straight oil paint on top of it. This is all oil paint. You know, often I'll do an acrylic underpainting, but I really wanted some blendy, loose, abstracty, kind of spattery, textury goodness going on here. You can see I just spattered turpentine right into the oil paint, which ate it away. I have a hard time doing that in acrylics so much. And then I wanted to work back into those textures. I didn't waste any time. I went right into these wings because they're kind of the most difficult part, these weird electrical sort of bizarre wings that are going on. And I just slowly glazed on the ultramarine blues that you see, and then I worked some of those colors into it. So the yellow mixed into a green, the white mixed into a lighter blue. Now I'm working my way down to the statues, but before I can get too far into the statues, we got to go back into the other wing. 2 of these things to paint. What a pain. Again, the most tough part of the whole thing. But look how I'm trying to radiate in a spiral staircase manner the yellow that's going through there. Trying to get these recognizable repeating things for your eye to latch onto. A little bit of a light turquoisey kind of green in there. And then we bust out the ultramarine blue once again with a little bit of the king's blue. Working that back and forth throughout the piece. But again, this is all very wet stuff. And I'm trying to use that to my advantage and let these colors blend and blur between each other quite a bit. The red is doing the same thing. At this point, we know the pattern of the feathers because we did them on the other wing, and I can just continue that spiral staircase of red and in green and blue radiating out. And then as you get closer to that hand, things get a little bit more strange and swimmy and smoky, I suppose is a fine way to put it. But I was pretty happy with that. And attacking that first, got it out of the way. I didn't have to stress about the wings for the rest of the piece. Kind of boldly graphic and lots of color up there. So we'll desaturate the color in most of the rest of the piece as a result. A little spattering at the very end there. Let's work on some of these statues. I'm just going to have the light source come from the left-hand side, and it's pretty much like a cube, or if you've ever rendered an apple or a sphere or a plaster cast. I'm just thinking about that. I looked at a lot of Art Deco art to design these statues because Giada tends to come from this Art Deco kind of world, and you can see I kind of floated the head there. It's an egg shape. Most people won't notice that, but there's a bit of an egg shape floating above this hollow hole in the neck. Means absolutely nothing. It just kept me entertained. That was a fine way to do it, but pretty simple stuff. And now that we've lit those guys, I can use some of those same grays in the jacket. And I'm trying to let some of that underpainting bleed through in the shadowy kind of areas. I wind up burying a lot of it, and I wish I had left more of the underpainting throughout this. But one of the things I'm most happy with, do you see her head? Do you see that little of a stroke that's coming off the top of her head, right off the top of her head? I'm falling in love with that stroke at this point, and that was just from the initial oil wash I did, and I'm going to wind up leaving it in for the entire painting. Let's paint her face. I scumbled in a base middle value, and while that was wet, I started working into it with lighter values, and as they hit that wet paint, they start to blend out, blend out, blend out, blend out, and then I tup it in the white again, and then I can go again, and it'll slowly blend itself out multiple times each time until I build it up to the highlight that I'm searching for. Tiny little liner brush using some lavender paint, very light lavender, going in there and just trying to do some of the bigger structural moves. I'm looking for those shapes. I'm looking for those light shapes like you can almost see on my face right here in this tiny little video in the corner. And I'm trying to capitalize on those, but that is a tiny brush because her face in reality is maybe the size of a $50. I mean, it's not a very big painting. And that's always tough when you're doing full figures because the heads will be so tiny unless you do a ginormous painting, which is why I often do ginormous paintings, at least for me. Anyway, kicking in those little bit of details and redrawing as I go, liking how the hair was all spattery. I'm going to want to keep some of that, but we need some more details in there. And while I've got that squirrely brush going with the darker value on her face, I'm going to use it in the hair as well. and just do this kind of cool flappers 1920s do. A lot of cross-hatching with that paint, with that tiny little brush, slowly blending it into each other, which is, again, another benefit of working in the oil paint. But we've got a bigger brush out. It'll still go down to a pretty fine tip, but it's a little bit softer and does some more roundy, blendy stuff. Okay, let's paint this hand. Well, we've got the formula now because we've done it on the head. I want this hand to be legible in front of the light that's going on behind it. So if you'll notice, I keep my highlights to a minimum on the hand so that in the squint, when you squint at it, you'll still be able to read that silhouette of the hand. It's often a misconception. You can have somebody wearing a white glove, but if there's a bright light behind it, that glove can appear black even. So use that to your advantage so that you can use the silhouette of the hands that you're using to cast the spells. Because what happens is we think it's a glowy light, so I just want to go in and highlight my hand everywhere. Well, in reality, you're probably better off trusting your silhouette on that hand and doing cool stuff with your magical effect. Still working that head. We're going to be going back and forth into that head throughout this piece. The rings she wears represent the colors of magic. It's another detail that very few people notice. But you got your blue, you got your white, you got your red. Got to do this lower hand, and you can see just how buttery some of that paint is on there. That's pretty impasto for me. I've been painting pretty thin for the last few years, and I really did enjoy getting in there and carving it and being able to see some brush strokes, which even though this painting was done over a year ago at this point, I've been embracing that more and more lately in some recent work. Drawing, that's what it is, right? That hand is all about structure and building it up. Let's do the dress. Big scumbly glaze first. Not worried about the piping on the dress, and then afterwards I'll go in with the liner brush and do it. And the way I pull these lines, they kind of indicate form, right? The way they go down and kind of hit those wrinkles and bounce back and forth. It's a good way to use the elements of your costume to help people understand the drawing and the foreshortening that's going on with your figure. Working our way down into those stockings. All of that underpinning you see with the spatter at the bottom is dry by this point. So I'm working on top of dry oil paint. That's a nasty old brush, but we're using it to get some drag effects so that I see the striations of the brush strokes. And again, it's almost like cross-hatching, but instead of doing 12 lines, I just get to do one pull of a brush. Kind of had to figure out what was going on with these shoes. Gave her some cool Art Deco designed shoes. Kind of cool. Maybe I should have been a shoe designer. Maybe I missed my calling here. Little buckle details, just giving it all a little bit of a snap down there. And it's sort of a balance, right? We've got tons of detail up at the head, and then there's a gradient of detail traveling down her body until you get to those shoes, which each have a little bit of snap on them as well. All right, we got to paint a shit ton more statues, so let's get into it. Sorry about my language there. Yeah, so we're just going to start carving it in, but I know the light source at this point, and I know the routine, and I know what those shapes are generally doing. They're just basic shapes. They're cylinders, tubes, weird mushroom shapes, or whatever. So I know how to light those out of my brain. Not a big deal, and they're pretty monochromatic. Well, very monochromatic, really. And I'm going to try to let that texture breathe through the underpainting largely, because obviously I'm going pretty opaque with the highlights. But if you'll notice, I'm not doing a lot in the shadows, not on these statues that are going back in space. Pretty much just doing the highlights on them for the most part. There's a little bit of middle value stuff happening, but you know, we're definitely trusting it. All right. Interesting call here, but I did this in the study and I liked it. That there's a tower that goes down the center, which is sort of a graphic thing. It's really dark, and you would think atmospherically it'd be pushing it back in the light and it'd be super, super light. But I liked how it balanced out the figure to go much darker with it. And because this is such a graphic piece and we're thinking about Art Deco anyway, I can get away with this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a giant gradient going down the center between the two groups of statues. All right, now as we get down to that circle you're going to see, I'm going to do a reverse gradient. On one side it's going to go one direction there, and it goes the other direction. It's almost a yin and yang thing. Just adds a little bit of extra design and the illusion of depth somehow, even though it's really just two gradients on top of each other. Look at all this texture in the bottom, but you can still see my drawing through it. Well, we're going to come to that in a second because I'm going to have some special effects happening at the bottom and I'm not sure how to do them. In the meantime, I needed more weight on the top. I needed to use that blue elsewhere. So you can see that I'm glazing the blue right over my statue in areas and right over the clouds. And I did it in a radiant style as if she's putting out a halo of light, right? that actually started suggesting clouds to me, which I found pretty interesting. You're going to see me capitalize on that in a little bit here. But I didn't plan this at first, what you're going to see. Notice the stroke is still on the top of her head. And we're going in with more details, just giving stuff a little bit of extra pop. Blowing out some edges on her jacket down at the bottom there and on the bottom of her sleeve. Letting those values kind of blend together so we feel that there's this big light source. Spattering into that blue that we just threw down. And now we're going to zoom in and you're going to actually see me working on the statue. You'll see those holes in the blue that I spattered down. So that terp ate into it, put those holes in there, which I then painted over, blended out a little bit, and left in some spots. But because we went darker with the blue on the top right, I had to reestablish the highlights of the statue. So we're just going in and we're reestablishing those highlights because everything got darker over there with the glaze. Same thing on this cat over here. And really pushing that blue around. So we're doing most of that rendering with a lighter blue. And that's still pretty wet paint over there. So it's blending all nicely together because it's blending right into that glaze that I threw down. Just a quick way to get some nice rendering pretty fast. Look at this. I needed some cool big stripes at the bottom. So I printed out a 2-scale drawing and I'm using a sponge and I'm using oil paint and I'm actually sponging these big stripes on. I didn't want to have to paint these stripes and then try to paint in between them on the statues. So this was an effect I was going to do after the fact. And it's going to work out pretty well. There you go. Peel that off and there you go. You've got these cool, weird, big stripey things. Now I'm starting to see the clouds a little bit more as I go with more blue at the top. And now I'm going to just start, oh, clouds are cool. I'll paint some clouds. Sure. A little spatter in there. Let's eat it up a little bit. It's a lot opaque paint. So the terp is not going to eat through the opaque paint as much as it does a glazy paint. Back in on that face, and look, you can see I had to have my reading glasses on to get in there. That is tiny. That brush I'm using is like a brush I cut like half the hairs off of, and there's another brush, another tiny liner brush, and we're just slowly going in and lighting that side of the face. And now I got clouds on the brain, so I'm just going to indicate some clouds at the bottom of the piece. And it's positive and negative clouds, right? So sometimes they're darker, sometimes they're lighter, and you use that as almost a checkerboarding effect, I would say. Creates layers of depth with them, right? Think about the black and white checkers, but just think of it as blue and white checkered clouds. I don't know. It's kind of a no-tan way of working, which is a Japanese way of working with black and white design. And there's the final piece, all cooked up, ready to go. It's really happy to revisit Giada and take another stab at painting those wings. Got some nice brushy stuff going on here. And got some ambiguity in the piece, which is something I've been searching for lately. And there's the final card. All right, guys, I hope you dig this. And I'd be curious, do you like this version or the earlier version I did of Giada better? Let me know in the comments. All right, we'll talk to you guys later.